I do too. Well, man, I'm looking forward to getting into your world of film and storytelling. And before we do that, I want to know 4 years ago, the ultimate story was getting etched with COVID. How did you make it through the pandemic and how did it ultimately change you?
So that's a good question. I think for me, I just always try to keep my mind on what I want and what I'm focusing on. And although I couldn't really necessarily make a film, I did a lot of legwork as far as just writing or thinking about projects that I would eventually do. So then once the PPP loans came out, I was able to pitch a story to an organization, and then I got a loan to make a short film. So 2020 was more of a preparation year, but yeah, it's just I believe in always staying active.
So, talk to me a little bit about what you do on a daily basis. And I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third graders. And it's career day, and one of the kids says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
So I'm a filmmaker, and that can mean a lot of different things. So what I primarily do is I will write a story that I want to tell, and then I will look for funding to tell that story. And then once we secure money to make that story, then I direct it with other filmmakers.
So, was this always a dream when you were in the third grade? Was this your dream to grow up and become a filmmaker?
I don't know if it was always a dream, but I always loved film and I always wanted to, be in that world, but just never knew exactly how I could get into it. So I put that desire out there, and then as time went on, circumstances and events started kind of shift and move me towards making films and kind of being in this industry.
So, are you originally from Chicago?
Yeah, I'm originally from the west suburbs, a small town called Batavia in the Tri-City area.
Okay. So, take me back to your childhood. What were the seeds that were planted into you that made you want to be a visual storyteller and get into filmmaking?
So I think for me, I grew up going to church, and it was really important for my parents to say you're going to go to church from 8 and it ends at 1 o'clock. And I said, oh my God, that's like so long. So I would always have like a pad of paper and a pen with me, and I was just always drawing. And I was just really just enamored with drawing, and then that led me to reading comic books, and that led me to watching a lot of movies and just kind of digesting them. And I didn't know it at the time, but I was kind of formulating the foundation for storytelling then. And then as I got older, I found myself playing with kids, and then we'd have like action figures and we'd make up like these elaborate stories. So I think I've always been a storyteller at heart. I just didn't know that filmmaking was my calling.
You know what's weird about comic books is, I'm a kid of the 80s, and I can't believe that that's the saving grace of Hollywood right now is adapting all of these comic books that we read. I mean,
Yeah.
what was your comic book? What was the one that was the go-to that you loved?
Oh, I love Daredevil. Daredevil was my
Yeah.
guy. Yeah.
All right. Right
Yeah.
on. So,
Yeah.
what about movies? What was the movie early on in your life that blew you away, that initially planted that seed that made you think, I'm going to do that one day?
I remember seeing I'm also a child of the late 80s. So I remember early on in the 80s, they made a couple of films. One was Beverly Hills Cop. I just thought Eddie Murphy was just so cool, and just the way that he glided on screen, and, it was just seamless. So I wanted to be like him. And then I also watched this film called Real Genius. It starred Val Kilmer in
Uh-huh.
one of his earlier roles. It was about a bunch of MIT nerds making lasers. And I probably watched that film probably 60, 70 times now.
Yeah.
And it's just, I was just drawn to it. So I think that was kind of something that really ignited that spark in me.
So who's been a hero? Who's been an inspiration for you in this journey into film?
I get a lot of inspiration from motivational speakers. So I am really drawn to like Steve Harvey. Les Brown is a big inspiration for me. But in the filmmaking world, Francis Ford Coppola, I actually had a chance to work with him
Wow.
for 4 years. Um, let's say Christopher Nolan is a big inspiration. Spike Lee is an inspiration. Um, And then, actors, I'm really enamored by Denzel Washington, the greats like James Cagney, uh, Marlon Brando, Marilyn Monroe, and just, going on and on.
Man, I feel so bad for Spike Lee being a Knicks fan. I see him on that sideline all the time, and he just
Yeah.
looks like he's getting ready to cry, dude. Just like,
You know what they should do? They should allow him to go to the games during the regular season, and then after that, they said, Spike, we love you, but you are. It's almost like he's a curse for these guys
I
because
know, man. It's
they
like,
should just say, just come back in like a couple of months, and then we'll allow you to come to the parade or something.
or
But
even the last game. Let's just say they get to game seven, it's some kind of blowout. He's just behind the curtain out back, and they're like, "Come on in, let's do it. Let's
yeah,
get you out there."
yeah.
That would be cool. Interesting enough, when I think about sports, one of the moments I would have loved to have seen, I was a Mets fan. My dad grew up in Long Island. So I love the 86 Mets. And that ball that went under Billy Buckner's legs in game six, I
Hmm.
didn't realize until just like maybe 6 months ago, there was an original guy at first base that always played. They always took Buckner out because in the late innings, the humidity and the cold would get into his knees and he just couldn't, he'd hobble around. He couldn't play as well. So they only brought him in because they had like one out left and they wanted him to be on the field to celebrate. And after they did that, the ball went underneath his leg.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's so the subtext of sports and what we see in life is almost infinitely more interesting than what actually happens.
Yeah, and he got really villainized for that. I
Oh,
mean, still to this day, just like they almost call him a hack of sorts.
yeah.
So it's just like that's unfair.
Man, there seems to be a theme with Bartman too. It's like there's always something going on.
Yeah.
So, I heard a story years ago, and it's probably been butchered a little bit, but they said that Steven Spielberg just walked on the Universal lot, put a name tag on the desk, and acted like he worked there. And finally, he got on some movies and things started taking off. I'm always fascinated on how people get into film. Like you've been around Coppola, you've been around big names. How did this journey begin? When did you get the big break, or how did you get your foot in the door?
So I would say I think I had like many instances of like where it kind of ramped up. So like my first entry into film was I was in college. And a roommate asked me to be in his film. And before then, I'd never done a film or anything before. Always was interested in it, so I acted in this film, and then that really gave me a lot of confidence. And then maybe about a year later, I was cast in like this no budget film that I think it paid me like maybe $300, and it was kind of it was like a premise where we were on Mars and the men were subordinate and they drank wine. They were kind of like barbarians to, the superior females that kind of ruled us. But I loved that experience. And it was just like, wow, I just want to do this. So then, later when I moved to California, um, and by the way, I did not want to move to California. I actually had this pact with my then girlfriend that I'll move anywhere but California. And she just so happened to get this job and this really cushy job in California. And I was just like, well, what else am I going to do? So,
Yeah.
I could always see that the universe was kind of just pointing me in this direction. And then finally, when it came to making films, um, I worked for Coppola. I'd never done anything like that before. And they pulled me inside and they said, hey, we want you to be the prop master for this traveling roadshow performance. And, that gave me the opportunity to work with the man himself, which people don't normally get to do. And then, from there, I edited the performances and then, started to meet more and more filmmakers. And then it's just been taking off since then. So it's, it's really interesting how all this kind of is unfolding.
About 20 years ago, a good friend of mine who's in Germany now, he's a filmmaker. We did a short film and it did pretty well here in Kansas City. And it was shown at kind of an indie fest. It was like 2 or 3 days. Man, I had never worked so hard in my life. I was a level of tired at the end of the day that I had never felt in my life. And I don't know that people understand that. They see film, it's glamorized, it's just this razzle dazzle, but it really takes a lot of work. All the things that you have to do, not only just in a myopic day, but when you pull it back from beginning to end, you're talking about a massive project.
Yeah, yeah. There's a film that so I've made 9 short films now, and I'm gonna make a feature film now. But just to get from that point where I started to now, that's 13 years.
Wow.
So keeping up with it, sometimes I'd have to work odd jobs. Sometimes it's really low on money, and just like I don't think this is going to work out. But that's when you always seem to get like this burst of inspiration, or something happens where you're allowed to continue your dream. So yeah, it takes a long time. And this feature film that I want to do, I came up with the idea maybe 10 years ago. So it's just it's been a long time in the making. So the average film that you see on screen probably took about 7 to 8 years from development to completion.
Yeah, that's amazing. So let me ask you this. If you can meet one person in the industry, spend a little time with them, get to know them, learn from them, who would that be?
Without a doubt, Christopher Nolan. Yeah, I think I just think that he's an amazing filmmaker. I think he's a filmmaker's filmmaker. Um, I watched his first film, Following. I think he made it for approximately $15,000, and then it made probably close to $150,000 in the box office. But I really love his approach and just creative way of thinking. Like when he doesn't have a lot of resources, he turns that into his advantage. And I think that as a filmmaker, especially independent filmmaker, you have to be cognizant of that. You have to say, well, I don't have this, I don't have that, but that's okay. Let's use that to our advantage. So I love the way that he's able to get a lot of bang out of the buck for his film projects.
So as a filmmaker, you got to navigate and negotiate quite a bit on every single front. You're in control of the whole thing. What is that motivation for you that keeps you positive, that keeps your head up, that keeps the artistic vision intact? What is the gas in your tank every day to do this artistic work you do?
I think for me, it's just the dream of doing something creative, working for yourself, and working with other people that have that similar goal. There's a great quote on, I don't know if you've seen this film, Any Given Sunday,
Yeah.
where Al Pacino is telling Jamie Foxx that he used to have this quarterback that wasn't that good, but he saw him later in life after he retired, and he said that he didn't really miss the glitz and glamour, the girls, and all the stuff of playing the game. But what he did miss was 11 men looking down the field with that same goal, and that's what I think filmmaking is. It's you have this collection of kind of this ragtag group of people that come from all different backgrounds, all different ages, but for a small amount of time, they all have that similar goal, and it's there's nothing like that collaboration, and it's fantastic.
So speaking of goals and having that shared common vision, what are you looking to see happen, say, in 10 years from now? What's your ultimate goal?
I want to win several Academy Awards,
Yeah.
and I see myself doing that. So I think for me, I just want to see myself successful, working in my craft, doing this to the best of my ability. And then, beyond that, I think everything else will follow.
So you've obviously come a long way in life. Let's say tonight you have a dream and you run into the 18-year-old version of you. You can give that version of you a piece of advice based on this life you've led, the wisdom you've accumulated. What advice would you impart on that young version of you, that 18-year-old? And would that version of you listen?
Uh, One, I don't know if he would listen, because when you're young, and you just think that you know everything. But I think what I would tell my 18-year-old self is always have a positive mindset. Always believe that whatever happens in life, whether it's perceived good or bad, it's working in your favor. You're either learning, or you're you're getting prepared to do something else. Life is always changing, but as long as you approach it with a positive mindset, then things generally turn out well for you.
So up to this point in your life, what are you the proudest of?
I think I'm the proudest that I've kept with it. This is something where I've seen a lot of great people that were just magnificent filmmakers, way more talented than I am. But they didn't prepare themselves for the marathon of life and kind of the stretch run of this filmmaking journey, and they ultimately ended up quitting. So I'm very proud that I've been able to persevere through the trials of this and to stick with it. Um, and that's why I called my company Strike Five Films. It's kind of a play on perseverance, where in life they using that baseball analogy, if you get three strikes in life and then you're out, but I know that you have to keep striking and keep willing to swing to make it for your goal and for whatever you want in life. So we call our company Strike Five Films.
So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, fans, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Uh, I think I'm a I think I'm an intelligent guy that loves to make films. I think that I'm passionate, and I think that ultimately the world is my oyster, and I'm going to get whatever I desire.
So when we get off this call, a time machine pulls up. You can go anywhere. You can go back in time and see one event in human history, or you can go into the future and see what's up. Where are you going?
Ooh, I think I'm gonna go. I'm a big history buff,
Yeah.
so and there's a lot of things in life that we get a story of what happened, but we don't
Uh-huh.
really know what happened. So I think I'd probably go back in history.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, man, if anyone wants to reach out, learn more about what you're doing, any of the good work you've done in the past, where's the best place to go?
You can find me with a simple Google search. My name is Jayson Johnson. It's Jayson Johnson. Alternatively, you can just do a Google search for Strike Five Films, and then a lot of my information will pop up. You'll be able to find me.
Right on. Jayson, this has been great, man. Thank you. Best of luck with the feature film. I can't wait to see your acceptance speech when you win the trophy.
Yeah, I'll probably be a sobbing mess, but yeah,
Yeah,
I'll be there.
that's okay. The only way to do it, man. Hey, great to meet you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Take care.